Every gamer remembers that one video game that first transformed them into a gamer. It's just one of those universal events in our lives that we can all relate to. No matter where we are in the world, our walk of life, or what generation of gaming marked our introduction to this wonderful medium, we all remember the first time we popped that special cartridge into the console, inserted that disc, or loaded up a digital copy from our favorite online marketplace. Whether it was the cool box art, an interesting description of the game, a sequel to a much-loved series, or just a recommendation from a friend, something made us take that chance on this crazy form of entertainment and commit to a lifelong subscription. And for me, that game was Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Now, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed a great many games that came before it, and would go on to enjoy a frankly countless amount after, from JRPGs to third-person shooters, cartoony, family-friendly, to gory, ultra-realistic, from NES to Xbox Series X. But there's just something special about the Sonic series that always kept me coming back for more. And while I did play and thoroughly enjoy both Sonic 2 and the original Sonic the Hedgehog a lot, it was always Sonic 3 and Knuckles that I could just never get out of my system. Something about this game and the world it took place in just hooked me in a way that no other game ever had. And it was the first game I experienced that had me actively thinking about what it would actually be like to live in that world, and the parts of it I would love to go see and explore further if I could. And it wouldn't be until games like Pokemon Red or Final Fantasy VII that I would feel that again. It also taught me something that I found to be crucial in gaming: how to persevere. That if I stuck at something, no matter how difficult, the payoff and sense of accomplishment was usually more than worth it. Granted, this was made easier by this game's introduction of save files to the series, which made things like drop-in drop-out gameplay and collecting all the emeralds so much more manageable than in previous games. When, you know, the FRAM in the cart doesn't just lose its shit like a Pokemon trying to learn a fifth move and just poof all your saves away. I had gone through this game so many times, completing it in every possible way, just to unlock all the custom save file art for each slot. And I tell you, the time I booted up the game to find them all gone, faced like a smacked ass is putting it mildly. But most importantly, it was thanks to Sonic 3 and Knuckles I learned at a very young age that video games are an art form. A way of telling interactive stories that no other medium could even come close to.
Really, Mark? You want me to talk about Sonic 3 and Knuckles? Again? I haven't done that Who am I kidding? I absolutely love this game, and I always want to talk about it. I've said it 1,000 times before, and I'm gonna say it again. Sonic 3 and Knuckles is what made me understand that I would be a gamer forever. This showed me what games can be, that they can expand to just more than silly cartoon animals having dumb, stupid adventures. I mean, it's doing that, but it's doing so much more at the same time. And I truly think it stands among the greats of that era. Hell, I would say it's one of the greatest games ever made. Am I biased? Absolutely. I could not stop playing this as a kid. I rented Sonic 3 as a child and played through it in a weekend and had a good time, but I wouldn't own it, not for a while. I would actually get Sonic and Knuckles separately as a Christmas present, but since games were so expensive, it would be a while before I could get my own copy of Sonic 3. So what I would instead do is just rent the same copy of Sonic 3 from my local video store, Action Video, and just rent that over and over until I could finally master all the special stages and get all the super emeralds for all the characters. And since they had 2 copies of Sonic 3 at that store, if I got the wrong cart, I would ask my mom to take me back to the store so we could swap it out for the proper one. I'm not kidding. That has actually happened. And it's still hard for me not to get defensive about this game. It's hard for me to comprehend how somebody could like some of the later games more than this one, and it's hard for me to listen to old school Nintendo fans declare this and other classic Sonic games as not being as good as what we actually thought they were. And that's why I made the video series I did. And while I am still working through learning about other people's opinions and understanding that it's okay to have different opinions, it was also really nice to feel validated when I finally let myself go completely weirdo and get super obsessed and just ramble on for hours about this game. Sonic 3 and Knuckles has literally changed my life, both as a child and professionally. That's the power of being passionate about video games. That's kind of awesome.
Sonic 3 and Knuckles came at probably the perfect time in my life. A time where I was in the best position to fully appreciate it and everything it tried to do. I was now old enough to be far more fanatical in my interest for the series than when either of the previous two games launched, and there were now so many different media arms of this franchise springing up everywhere, offering more and more content in Sonic's universe than ever before, as the popularity of this spiky blue ball of attitude exploded in the West. Here in Ireland, while you didn't really see the Archie Sonic comics around at all, we did get Fleetway's Sonic the Comic. And no small amount of credit goes to this fantastic series for completely hooking me on the story and universe of Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Reading this comic and seeing all the cool expanded lore and stories around the events of the game, getting to explore other sections of the zones you never got to see while playing, I was just fascinated. I couldn't get enough of Angel Island, and just wanted to learn more and more about its history and uncover its secrets. It's actually funny. I used to be so worried I would miss out on an issue, or that all the copies would sell out, that I actually had my mother pre-order mine in my local supermarket. Used to get my copies sealed with a cool little sticker with my name on it, and I could usually barely wait to get home before tearing the wrapping off and diving in to find out what happened next between Sonic and Knuckles, whether they would survive their run-in with Super Mecha, or what secrets the pyramids of Sandopolis might hold. But that's just how crazy I was for this series. I was basically just short of Gollum hoarding away all the issues of STC. The more serious style of storytelling in the Fleetway comics also tied in really well with the new focus on storytelling in the game. And it was also around this time I started much preferring the Sat AM cartoon to the Adventures series. I remember actually being disappointed if it wasn't the Blue Streak opening when I went downstairs on Saturday morning for my weekend dose of Sonic. Of course, as an adult, I still love the Adventures series. That shit's hilarious. But the Sat AM show always made me think, this is what would happen to the world in the games if Sonic failed to stop Robotnik. This is the bad future, pardon the pun, that we are working towards preventing by taking out his Death Egg. And all of this just added to the appeal of Sonic 3 and Knuckles for me in a big way. While obviously very different to each other, these universes all somehow fuse together in my head, and I would often find myself using pieces of the story from the comics to fill in any perceived blanks in the game. It was just the perfect sonic storm. A sonic wind, if you will. But probably one of the best things about this game in my experience, and Sonic the Hedgehog as a whole for that matter, is its ability to bring people together. I was introduced to Sonic for the first time by my older cousin, who brought me on board with the original Sonic the Hedgehog game. Come to think of it, it's actually thanks to him I learned about the comics as well. I actually have a lot to thank him for in respect to Sonic the more I think about it. And even a lot of friends I made at school or just around the neighborhood. We were all brought together by our love for Sonic. Whether that be the games, the comics, the cartoons, or the toys. Sonic was the bridge that connected us all together for the first time. Growing up in Ireland in the 90s, it was near enough a sure thing you had a lot of cousins. Some were awesome, and you loved spending time with them regardless, like the one who introduced me to Sonic, and others you could barely stand to be in the same room with. But load up Sonic 3 and Knuckles, plug in a second pad, or just take turns, and everything else just melted away. There was only Sonic, and it was up to the two of you to work as a team to finish the game. No matter how well, or in some cases not so well, that you got on with someone, it was still possible to connect with them on some level through these games. I was lucky enough to own Sonic 3 before Sonic and Knuckles even launched. And when it finally did, I have fond memories of my cousin, the one who introduced me to the series, renting it from the local video store and going over to his house with my copy of Sonic 3 to connect those bad boys up. And we just spent hours getting every penny's worth out of that rental before it had to go back to the store. Spent most of that time in Sandopolis Act 2 actually. And when I finally got my own copy that Christmas, I will always remember the time shortly afterward. Me, another cousin and a friend spent the entire weekend going through the game, getting every possible ending, just to unlock all the custom artwork for each of the save slots. As kids, that was no small feat, and the fact that 3 young boys were able to stay inside cooperating for a whole rainy weekend without killing each other, that, my friends, is the power of Sonic the Hedgehog.
My own personal journey with Sonic really started on the Dreamcast with Sonic Adventure 1. The Dreamcast was my first ever console, and if we're talking about Sonic 3 and Knuckles, well, I really didn't even know much about it at the time. After all, it's not like there was any way of playing the classic games on the Dreamcast. I had this friend though, and we both loved Sonic. It was how we became friends in the first place. He actually lived down the street from me too, and we rode the bus home together every day. We'd talk about Sonic probably 90% of the time during that ride home. This friend had an older brother who owned a Genesis with all of the classic Sonic games, and I vividly remember my friend trying to describe the classic games to me on the bus. He was specifically describing Hydro City Zone from Sonic 3 and was expressing how hard of a time he was having with it since he'd always get to an underwater section and run out of air before he could make it out. He invited me over to try it and see if maybe we could figure out how to finally get past it. So I met up with him after school and he gave me a tour of the Genesis along with his Sonic collection. I had never seen a Sega Genesis before, so it was kind of mind-blowing for me. And we eventually popped in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. And that blew my mind even more with the lock-on technology. You're telling me that you could put a game inside of a game? Nah man, there ain't no way. But then we booted the game up, and I saw that glorious title screen. Sonic and Knuckles standing side by side. It looked so cool. Since I had only played 3D Sonic up until that point, I never realized that the games he was talking about were 2D. It was completely foreign to me, but in a good way. The metallic, crunchy music and the fun character sprites immediately hooked me. It was like injecting Fun Dip straight into my eyeballs. Needless to say, we powered through a ton of Sonic 3 and Knuckles that day, and yes, we got through Hydro City Zone. So I went home completely sold on the idea of the classic Sonic games, but unfortunately, realized I had no good way of playing them myself. Not too long after though, it was Christmas time, and I got a Nintendo GameCube with the Sonic Mega Collection. This game literally came out at the perfect time for me. Finally, I was able to play through all of the classic games in one easy to access place. And oh boy did I play through them all. Sonic 3 and Knuckles is an amazing game. I don't think there are many people that would disagree with that. But this game has a very special personal place in my heart. I played this game a ton with my little brother. Now that I'm thinking about it, this may have been his first ever video game. He was really young at the time, maybe like 3 or 4 years old. He'd obviously play as Tails because, sorry buddy, he wasn't that great at the game. So Tails was the perfect character for him since getting hit and dying was essentially inconsequential, and anything he'd even accidentally do to help was a nice little bonus. But just the fact that he, at least in his mind, felt like he was contributing was enough for him, even if he would fall into all of the spike pits and enemies. Being the older brother, and maybe some of you can relate to this, I would usually get mildly annoyed at my younger sibling constantly wanting to butt his head into my business all of the time. But playing through Sonic 3 and Knuckles as a co-op game was completely different. It was us bonding over a common interest of video games. This game really taught me how to relate to my little brother in a way I'd never had up until that point. Before then, in my eyes, he was just a dumb baby that could barely form coherent sentences. But in his eyes, I was this cool older brother who knew about and introduced him to cool video games. To me, Sonic 3 and Knuckles is a game about experiencing an adventure with someone. From my friend who was kind enough to introduce me to the game in the first place, to my little brother who I was able to truly bond with for the first time. Or even me right now telling you all my own personal story with this game. Heck, this entire video is just a bunch of dudes sharing their adventures with the rest of us. And Sonic 3 and Knuckles will always be amazing to me for these reasons.
Sonic the Hedgehog often means something completely different from person to person, depending on which era of the series was their first. And as someone who has played these games and been completely enthralled with the series since the very beginning, it has been very strange to watch over the last 3 decades as the fanbase would start to splinter. And ever since Sega's exit from the console market with the death of the Dreamcast, what I can only describe as civil war between the ever-increasing subsections of this fandom would continue to burn furiously. Classic elitist, a blind adventure nostalgic, a meta-era simp. These are the labels we now all attach to each other, in what I can only guess is some sort of attempt to justify our own preferences by putting down those of others. It's funny, and I think about this fairly often actually. This concept would have been completely alien to a Sonic fan in the 90s. No, not just because there was only classic Sonic, or as he was known then, Original Santiago. You only need to look at the heated debates that go on between fans these days to know that even classic fans have strong views on what makes a great classic game and which one did it best. Sonic 1 didn't know what it wanted to be, but Green Hill was awesome and created a template for the best stages in the series. Sonic 2 was amazing, improved on the original in every way. Look how friggin' fast I can go. Yeah, well, Metropolis. Sonic CD stages are like labyrinths. I mostly just blunder my way through them. Yeah, well, I love the exploration. The music is awesome. And this game introduced Amy and Metal, so screw you. Sonic 3 and Knuckles is perfection. It takes everything that came before and improves it. Okay, but it came in two halves, and has the Barrel of Doom and Sandopolis. There was plenty to argue about over these games, if we ever felt so inclined. But we didn't, because back then, we had much bigger fish to fry. The enemy wasn't among us. There were no enemies within. The real enemy was in a completely different camp. That weird cosplaying, go-karting, mushroom-snorting filth known as Mario. The notion of console wars and fanboys goes back way further than the so-called Xbox or Sony ponies, arguing with each other about which of their $500 purchases was the better one, while the Nintendo Switch supremacists snigger and play Sonic Mania on the train. But back on any school playground in the early 90s, the Sega vs Nintendo and Sonic vs Mario debate was just as intense. And I guess that much more united front made it a lot easier to enjoy both playing and discussing Sonic games with any Sonic fan. Nobody was trying to tear you down for what you loved about the series. But I suppose one thing you can't take away from the Sonic community, past or present, is its passion. That has been a timeless trait of this fandom from the very beginning. And no matter when or where you played it first, Sonic 3 and Knuckles is equally timeless. Whether you played it on original hardware, caught it on the Mega Collection, grabbed it on Steam or via mods like Sonic 3 Air, or have yet to try it and are planning to pick it up in the Origins Collection, enjoyment of this game is cross-generational. And when you see little kids at a Sonic Q&A in 2018 asking for Hypersonic to be brought back, it just shows that age is no barrier to understanding why this game is so special.
The first time I ever played this game was on the Sega Mega Collection for the PS3, and this was also the first classic Sonic game I ever played. Strange, I know. I didn't get far back then, and no, not at the Barrel of Doom. It was actually in Hydro City, and yes, it is called Hydro City. What is a Hydro City, huh? It doesn't make any sense. It is a water city. Hydro City. Anyways, carrying on, even if I didn't get far in that game, I still loved it due to the great level design. Every time I game overed from drowning in Hydro City and got sent back to the start again, I always found new secrets everywhere, and it just brought me so much joy. Till this day, Sonic 3 and Knuckles remains my favourite 2D Sonic game and my second favourite Sonic game of all time. This game just has it all. Great music, level design, aesthetics, story, everything. I'm so glad we were finally able to play this game in widescreen in Sonic Origins. Thank you, Sonic gods. Thank you. My favourite zone in this game has to be Ice Cap. The music is spot on, there's a brilliant mix of speed and platforming, and that intro, man. It looks so freaking cool, man. Just look at it, look. This game has defined Sonic's character so well, and there isn't even any voice lines. This game really was revolutionary at the time, and in my opinion, still holds up extremely well today. Just a quick side note though. Can I just say that Marble Garden is super underrated? It has really cool set pieces and level design in my opinion. It really just seems like any stage with the word marble in it is underrated. Yes, even Marble Zone from Sonic 1. To end this little talk off, it honestly is such a shame that this was the least selling classic Sonic game of the trilogy, because it is by far the best, and hopefully, with Sonic Origins, many new people will be introduced to the game, or reintroduced to the game, and love the game the same way me and so many others do. Thank you.
Sonic 3 and Knuckles marked a point in the series where the story became a crucial element of the games. While the overall narrative of save the animals and beat the bad guy has always been there, this game would take what Sonic 2 and Sonic CD dabbled in and take it to the friggin' moon. We open with this frankly awesome in-engine scene depicting Sonic and Tails heading to Angel Island to investigate after it fell out of the sky and caused a huge tidal wave to hit the mainland and the surrounding islands. Series continuity is also firmly established in this scene, with Sonic turning super using the 7 Chaos Emeralds he collected in Sonic 2. And who could forget that jaw-dropping moment that Knuckles shovel-clawed his way into the series, straight up knocking Sonic out of his super form. I don't think there could have been a bigger endorsement than this for Knuckles from the creators. Here is this brand new character we've never seen before, and he just comes in and casually faceplants Super Sonic like it was no big deal. Right from this moment, you just knew Knuckles was something special, and that he would become a huge part of the series going forward. But in a nutshell, series continuity, importance of the Chaos Emerald, strange new place, brand new rival. That's an impressive amount of information to squeeze into a 22-second silent scene. And as the first of many epic moments this game has in store for us, it will always be special to me. Like Metal should have been in Sonic CD, Knuckles represents a serious thorn in your side as you make your way through the game, constantly popping up at random to try ruin your day and, kill you. See, he has been tricked by big brain 300 IQ feminist man into thinking that Sonic is here to steal the island's emeralds. And as the last remaining guardian of this place, he's not about to stand by and let that happen. But unfortunately for Knuckles, Robotnik is a putrid dick, and it's him who plans to steal the emerald to power his Death Egg, reviving his plans to rule the planet from above. But there are much bigger things at play here. Sonic's arrival on Angel Island was foretold, and with its guardian's judgment severely lacking, falling for the enemy's lies and inviting them in, the Master Emerald turns to Sonic to be the island's salvation, bestowing upon him the full power of the Super Emeralds and granting his Hyperform, the pinnacle of chaos energy. And all of this is explained by no more than a mural on the walls of Hidden Palace. You only actually see this during your fight with Knuckles, so it's no surprise that a lot of people actually missed this on their playthrough. But as a kid with nothing but time on his hands and an undying love for this game that saw me play it again and again, this weird Cupid looking Sonic baby with a super aura trying to wrestle away the Master Emerald from Robotnik always made me wonder why on Angel Island it was Sonic shown here and not Knuckles. But as an adult, Knuckles' lapse in judgment here and Sonic's overall near unexplainable affinity with the Chaos Emeralds speaks for itself. With Knuckles' eyes now open to Robotnik's true motives and the fate of his home now hanging in the balance, he swallows his pride and turns to Sonic for help, showing him the way to Sky Sanctuary so he can pursue the launching Death Egg. Sky Sanctuary is sacred to the Echidna clan, so Knuckles allowing Sonic to even step foot here just shows how much trust he is placing in him out of sheer desperation. As Sonic makes his way through this beautiful crumbling city, we come face to face with a new and improved Mecha Sonic. I don't know if it's just me, but two things always jump out at me about these guys whenever I see them. The first is Robotnik's clear acknowledgement of Sonic's powers, ceaselessly attempting to build machines in his image to surpass him. That's some begrudging respect right there. And the second actually ties into the plot of Sonic 4 Episode 2, where Robotnik went to retrieve Metal's broken down remains from Little Planet. The fact that he built two awesome, but frankly inferior models to Metal in Sonic 2 and 3 just goes to show how important Metal is to Robotnik. His plans for the original, along with the machine itself, were lost on Little Planet after his defeat there, and with his desperate attempts to improve on it failing every time, he was actually forced to retrieve the original in a future game. I know people tear down Sonic 4 a lot, but this was one thing I always loved about the second episode. Anything that acknowledges and builds upon the lore established in the classics is a win in my book. After experiencing the full interior of the Death Egg in all its glory, something we were only teased with in Sonic 2, Sonic's story finishes out in a nail-biting pursuit through space in his Super or Hyper form. And I have trouble putting into words just how epic it felt to unlock and experience this for the first time. This was truly the perfect way to reward the player for collecting all the emeralds, and the concept itself went down so well with the fans that it went on to be adopted into many of the best final boss fights in future games. And even with Sonic's campaign now out of the way, we haven't even touched on Knuckles' yet. Even with the day saved by Sonic and the Master Emerald returned to Angel Island, Knuckles still can't catch a break. One of Robotnik's elite egg robos has taken it upon itself to try and finish what its master started, and it's now up to Knuckles to stop it from stealing the Master Emerald. Knuckles' campaign really highlights his role as the island's guardian, and is full of alternate routes and shortcuts to demonstrate that he knows every inch of this place inside and out, culminating in a surprise final showdown with Super Mecha Sonic. Not only did this badass chunky boy survive its encounter with Sonic, Robotnik has also managed creating a machine that can somehow absorb chaos energy directly from the Master Emerald, achieving its own super form. But Knuckles finally gets some much deserved redemption, and whether it's a nod to him punching Sonic out of his super form or not, I like to think it is, he manages taking out this mechanical Sonic copy, super form and all. And even though it might mean his death, as the last remaining pieces of Sky Sanctuary crumble down around him, this noble guardian is just happy that he prevented the Master Emerald from falling into the hands of evil, and that he managed protecting his home. But Sonic being Sonic, Knuckles is saved from its fall by the tornado, and a lifelong friendship is born. This game expanded the Sonic universe in ways that would shape the future of the series over the next decade. The lore of the Chaos Emeralds and how they fit in the universe was completely fleshed out here, and the importance of things like the Master Emerald and its effect on Angel Island was now firmly established, and would go on to form the basis for the story in both adventure games. The dynamic between Knuckles and Sonic was now set, explaining how these two would act around each other for years to come. And the super-powered final showdowns that would appear in pretty much every mainline game for the next 15 years, they were born in this game. And Doomsday, while still a secret that needed to be unlocked, wasn't simply another good ending hidden behind collectibles, like the short scenes in the previous games were. It was an awesome experience that the developers wanted everyone to experience, the canonical ending for their game. And this couldn't be made any clearer by the inclusion of the save system. For its time, this game was a behemoth, and the scope for completing it in one go for most kids just wasn't realistic. Never mind completing it in one sitting and collecting all the emeralds, but the save system allowed you to experience this game in its entirety at your own pace. Even if you failed to get any emeralds in a playthrough, you then got the level select where you could just go back and try again whenever you like. And it's that confidence in their vision by the developers, and their insistence that everyone should see the whole story, that makes this game so special.
I have an interesting history with Sonic 3 and Knuckles. This is a game that I didn't ever get to experience on original hardware, but I grew up in the age where I should have been able to. I first experienced the Sonic series by playing Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on a friend's Genesis, and then the first one on another friend's Genesis, but nobody I knew ever had the third game. I didn't even know the third game existed until I went to an Office Max and saw the PC release of Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Not that I'd be able to play it then either. I wouldn't experience Sonic 3 and Knuckles until I unlocked it as a game in Sonic Mega Collection. For some reason, Sonic 3 and Sonic Knuckles were on there as separate games, but you had to do some stuff to unlock Sonic 3 and Knuckles. It wasn't until years after playing Sonic 3 and Knuckles that I learned about the lock-on technology that made that game what it was. I mean, I'd experienced lock-on before with stuff like the Game Shark, but anyways, this was a game that always held a special allure to me. Remember, I played Sonic Adventure 2 before this, so I was familiar with Knuckles as a character. This was the game that was supposed to show me what events led to Sonic and Knuckles even knowing each other in the first place. As a kid, it was a lot easier to fill in the blanks with this story, but the Sonic Mega Collection had another thing in it that kinda helped fill those blanks too. It had 4 short Sonic comics from the Archie series, and one of them was representative of Sonic's first interaction with Knuckles in Sonic the Hedgehog 3. This condensed story on the Mega Collection's disc was how I really experienced this story growing up, because, well, I was pretty horrible at video games and never actually beat Sonic 3 and Knuckles. But it was a game that I would always return to. The game had a save system, and that made it pretty unique amongst all the different classic Sonic games. I wouldn't really beat it until the Nintendo DS re-release, but when I think of the Sonic games released during that era, if I wanted to play something that was reminiscent of old-school video game design as a piece of history, I'd play Sonic 1. If I wanted something to blast through real quick to kill some time, I'd play Sonic 2. But if I wanted a complete experience, a story told to me, I would play Sonic 3 and Knuckles. While the game doesn't show its story in cutscenes or anything like that, it does have a narrative thread that the other games just simply don't have, and it makes it feel like a really organic environment to return to. It's a game that I watched from afar for years, never being able to own a physical copy of it, until the GameCube release, and it's a game that when I finally got the chance to sit down and play, it was worth all that waiting. Especially now that I know that it's better that I didn't experience the PC version of that soundtrack. While it may not be my favorite game in the series, Adventure 2 will probably always hold that spot. I will say it's probably the game with the most landmarks. Everything in Sonic 3 and Knuckles gets referenced again in Sonic Adventure. Angel Island being a focal point for the story, the Master Emerald being the major MacGuffin you're worried about, and since the events of Adventure 1 directly lead into the Space Colony Arc incident and all of the other incidents that make up the bulk of the more story-centric Sonic games, almost the entirety of those games' lore rests upon the shoulders of Sonic 3 and Knuckles. So while it may not be my favorite in the series, it is probably one of the ones with the most historic weight to somebody who's obsessed with the lore. And, I'm definitely kind of obsessed with Sonic lore. Anyways, I think I've used up probably enough of your time, so I just wanted to thank Mark for giving me a spot on his channel to talk about this. This game is not only an important part of history, but it's an important part of my childhood. I wish I could have experienced it on original hardware, but I'm happy with the way things turned out.
Momentum-based platforming, the catchphrase now synonymous with classic Sonic games. And that's for a very good reason. This was the formula that set Sonic apart from Mario, and the many other mascot-based platformers that graced the gaming landscape in the 90s. And while it took a bit of time for the series to fully settle on its true identity, things would always improve as time went on, with the stage design and overall pacing, coupled with those unmistakable Sonic physics, being refined and iterated over the course of several games in just 3 short years. Speed, platforming, and exploration are the 3 pillars that these games are built around. And while previous titles may have excelled greatly in 1, or maybe even 2 of these areas, for me, Sonic 3 and Knuckles strikes that perfect balance between all 3, offering zones with layouts that somehow fully cater for all 3 of these core elements. You want to blitz through at full speed without stopping? Sure thing. With some practice, pretty much every route can be taken at high speed, generally with no need to stop until you reach the boss. Platforming? Yeah, that's here too, with some really satisfying examples, like chaining the balloons together in Carnival Night to reach rings on higher ground, crossing the gaps of the much improved Wing Fortress in Flying Battery, or timing these upside down jumps in Lava Reef Act 2 to nail the perfect landing. And probably the best thing about the platforming in this game is that most of the time, it doesn't completely impede your progress. Sure, the first time you reach some of these sections you might have to stop to get your bearings, but once you're comfortable with the game, they can mostly be navigated without even stopping. You'll be able to do this shit upside down before you know it. Trust me. And exploration? Don't even get me started on exploration. This game takes exploration, makes it optional, but hides probably the most appealing stuff it has to offer behind it. The series had dabbled with all sorts of ways of handling the special stages in the past. They tested your skill, demanding you carry at least 50 rings across the goal line. They did similar again, but also had you explore the map for the star post entrances that also served as checkpoints, with some obvious drawbacks like the player potentially avoiding checkpoints if they're holding out for 50 rings, or checkpoints you passed deactivating any you missed earlier in the zone, locking you out of more attempts at an emerald. But Sonic 3 and Knuckles addresses all of these issues. If Angel Island wasn't already enough incentive in itself to explore every inch of it, I mean, it's just gorgeous. You friggin' look at it. The giant rings that serve as entrances to the special stages are now hidden high and low all across the island. With how quickly you manage collecting the emeralds and unlocking your super or hyper form, now resting entirely in your hands, regardless of how skilled you are at the rest of the game. The 3 pillars are even conformed to in this game's many water sections. Yep. That's right. Even after the life trauma that was Labyrinth, the nervous tiptoeing around even the idea of it in the second game, water is now present in 5 out of 6 zones in the first half of the game. The developers opted to finally take the bull by the horns when it comes to the inclusion of water in these games, and in doing so, successfully incorporated it into the high-speed platforming formula. Yeah, there are slower, more deliberate underwater sections, but with the introduction of the bubble shield, even these are pretty low stress if you keep your cool and hold on to the shield. And for the most part, the underwater sections are just as fast as the ones on land. And even as the main water level of the game, Hydro City is extremely well paced, with plenty of above water sections throughout to give the player a breather. All of this is impressive enough as it is, but when you consider that there are now 3 playable characters in this game, each with their own unique set of abilities, I just can't help but be in awe at what was achieved here. Whether you play as Sonic, Tails, or Knuckles, it always feels like you're playing a Sonic game. You never reach a point in a stage where you're like, nah, this doesn't feel right. This wasn't designed for this character. It somehow feels like the game was designed specifically for all 3. And that's because it kinda was. Each stage is littered with a bunch of different layouts that are optimized for each character, which gives plenty of incentive to play through the game multiple times with each one. Especially Knuckles, who gets to explore completely different parts of the zones that are exclusive to him, making maximum use of his gliding and climbing abilities to get around. And even with all the cool new abilities this game adds, insta-shields, flying, swimming, gliding, climbing, the game is still played with just a directional pad and one action button. That philosophy that has been part of the series since day one is never betrayed, regardless of the variety of gameplay and the obstacles that the player faces. Is the game 100% unquestionably perfect with 0 flaws? Nope. There are definitely some annoying stage gimmicks and less than ideal mechanics sprinkled throughout the game. The Barrel of Doom didn't get its name for nothing. And despite how much I love it, Sandopolis Act 2 outstays its welcome with the vast majority of players. But these were the exceptions rather than the rule. If the game was indisputably perfect, mods like Air wouldn't need to exist. But for me, in isolation, this was as close to perfection as we were going to get.
While Sonic Adventure 2 is my all-time favorite video game, there are very, and I mean very few games that I can say are truly perfect. I can't even say that about SA2. And in that small few, Sonic 3 and Knuckles lies atop the pile, from its excellent level design, level themes, music, environmental storytelling, and grand sense of adventure, all wrapped into that 16-bit cartridge. I actually never played the Genesis games till the summer of 2020, so just last year, and Sonic 3 and Knuckles blew my mind. And then on top of that, with Knuckles' story, with that awesome fight at the end, it dropped my 20-year-old mouth to the floor. I was just like, damn, this is awesome. I finally understood what the hype was about, and that game is truly the pinnacle of 2D Sonic. It gave me a whole different appreciation and perspective on the series, and got me hooked right back into everything with the franchise. My favorite zone in Sonic 3 is probably Angel Island for just how beautiful it is and its progression throughout the stage with it turning all fiery and stuff after the mini-boss fight. While for Sonic and Knuckles, Flying Battery is definitely it, with it also being one of my all-time favorite 2D zones, with its banging music and just super cool atmosphere. But they're all so great, so it's hard to even decide. I played through Sonic 3 and Knuckles on the Steam port originally, so I'm incredibly excited to play it on Sonic Origins in the coming year. I just love how cohesive the game is too, with the fluid transitions from Act 1 and Act 2, or the transitions from different zones. It really just gives this grand epicness and charm to the game that I believe has helped make it stand out from the crowd. While the development cycle of Sonic 3 and Knuckles was absolutely crazy, it doesn't feel like they cut any corners on, well, any part of the game. The music too, oh my god. I cannot even begin to describe just how great every track is in this game, from Ice Cap's adrenaline-pumping tracks, to Launch Base, Lava Reef, Sky Sanctuary. Ugh, every zone is a 10 out of 10 in the music department, and overall, there's just so much variety, it's amazing. Sonic 3 and Knuckles is truly a perfect game, and once I played it full and through, I was finally able to understand what all the hype was about, and I can say it's worth all of it.
As I mentioned at the beginning, Sonic 3 and Knuckles was the first game that truly left my jaw on the floor when it came to visuals, and the sense of immersion I got when playing this game was, quite frankly, unmatched at that time. After Sega's initial plan that this game be Sonic's first 3D outing fell through, their intentions to include the Sega Virtua processing chip in the cart hitting both cost and deadline issues, the team decided to stick to familiar territory and create another 2D game. But that did not stop them from going absolutely all out, squeezing every possible pixel they could out of this 16-bit machine. A machine, I might add, that launched in 1989. In '94, the original PlayStation would launch in Japan at the end of that very year. This game on this hardware had no business looking this good, but similar to Sonic Adventure 2 on the Dreamcast, the devs were now right at home on this hardware, and they knew exactly how to make this baby sing. And the results just can't be argued with. The faux 3D style applied to both the environment and the character models works really well, and the attention of detail on show from start to finish is just absolutely stunning. The amount of different animation frames created for the characters as they run up obstacles, zip down pipes, or climb across handrails is seriously impressive, and awesome details like the manually applied shading on parts of the terrain goes a long way to make the image pop off the screen, adding an awesome sense of depth to the image we're presented with. Angel Island Zone is absolutely gorgeous, checking any and all boxes required as a lush, undisturbed jungle, hiding a lost world of secrets behind its barrier of dense vegetation. This game's world always feels like a living, breathing place, and even with all of its vastly different stage themes and even climates, it still always feels like these places exist in harmony with each other, and that they are actually all connected, helped in no small part by how the game seamlessly transitions you from one place to the next. Act 1 and 2 are no longer separated by a black loading screen. You just pick up in the exact spot you left off and continue onward. And each new zone now has an explanation as to how you got there from the previous one. This simple mechanic links the whole island together, bringing everything to life. And I just can't get over how such a small thing has such a big payoff for the overall game. It's absolutely fantastic. And how this game utilizes the background to tell its story is nothing short of perfection. In a story-centric game, with no written or spoken word to communicate with the audience, the devs would use the tools they had, and their use of the background from start to finish was an art in itself. The fleet of flamecraft torching Angel Island Zone, our first glimpse at Robotnik while fleeing an airstrike, the Death Egg looming over you at launch base, and all of the other amazing times it pops up as a landmark or narrative device. Even the deepest elements of the story are always strategically placed for maximum effect in the background. All you have to do is look for them. For me, there are just so many amazing and unforgettable moments in this game. Navigating the gorgeous jungles of Angel Island, only to see them torched by Robotnik, the ancient city ruins of Marble Garden, leaving you to wonder about the civilization that left all this behind, and what could have happened to them. The beautiful Ice Cap Zone, imprinting its opening snowboard scene on the brains of Sonic fans for all eternity, knocking the Death Egg out of the sky just in time at launch base, the suffocating heat and claustrophobic pyramids of Sandopolis, that feeling the first time you start to recognize locations from Hidden Palace during Lava Reef Act 2, the music only confirming your suspicions, and bursting through the clouds of Sky Sanctuary. Holy shit, the feeling of seeing this for the very first time. It's what I can only imagine it must feel like after reaching the summit of a mountain after a long and treacherous climb. And that mixture of holy friggin' moly, this is beautiful, and pure accomplishment washes over you. It was a long journey as a kid to reach this point for your first time. And when you finally did, this moment was truly special. Then, before you know it, the final act of the game is thrown at you a mile a minute, and you chase Robotnik's colossal space station up a crumbling tower before a final showdown in space. This game took me on a visual and auditory journey that I will never forget. And even at the time of writing this, 27 years on, when I picked this game up for yet another run-through from the top, I still get that same stupid smile on my face as I did back in '94.
Like the vast majority of people, I too love Sonic 3 and Knuckles. And what I've always appreciated most about it is how it feels like such a great continuation of the games that came before, but also a distinct evolution, taking the franchise in a brand new direction that takes all of what worked before and adds nothing but greatness onto it. Specifically, the looks and sound I've always liked a lot more than the previous Genesis titles. Sonic looks way better in this game than I think he's ever looked before, a lot more mature, a lot tougher, a lot leaner. Frankly, I just think that he looks a lot more, well, real if I had to put it some way. This approach, in my opinion, is carried throughout the rest of the game. The jungles of Angel Island have never looked so lush and natural. Angel Island Zone seems ancient and weathered, and even the frozen desolate ice cap comes alive through fantastic coloring and design. And the gameplay is right up my alley. Sonic 2 I think is more fast-paced due to its largely horizontal level design, but Sonic 3 and Knuckles is able to have speed with large open levels. These levels are somehow both labyrinths and racetracks at the same time. So many paths to choose from, all with different kinds of rewards, whether it be rings, extra lives, or the unforgettable elemental shields. That's not even mentioning the soundtrack of this game. Easily one of the most iconic in the series, I love every track in this game. Whether it be Angel Island Zone's natural bouncy feel, the title screen music for Pete's sake, or probably my favorite track in the game, the save select screen. The diversity in the soundtrack is amazing. It can relax you, it can pump you up, or it could even fill you with dread. All of these aspects are tied together by this game's, although very simple, yet still fantastic story. Although nothing revolutionary in terms of narrative writing, it is still a great story for a classic Sonic game, and really feels like the ultimate grand epic send-off for the classic series on the Genesis. For the longest time I struggled to get into this game, but once I was older and could better appreciate its design, I fell in love with it. The revolutionary aesthetic combined with a perfect style of 2D Sonic, all supplemented by legendary music and an engaging yet simple story, Sonic 3 and Knuckles has earned its spot as my favorite classic Sonic title of all time, and I swear every other day it's my favorite Sonic game of all time. It's so hard to pick. But I can always say with 100% certainty, I believe Sonic 3 and Knuckles is a perfect Sonic game, and I love it with all of my heart. Before I go, I just wanted to thank Ace Card Gaming for letting me speak in this video. I love the content, keep it up, my guy.
Sonic 3 and Knuckles can be experienced in a frankly ridiculous amount of ways. You just have to listen to any of the guys here talk about the many ways they were introduced to the game to get even an idea of all the possible combinations. Some people only ever owned half of it, others experienced it in reverse order. As for which character you play through the game with first, Sega even left that up to you to decide, regardless of the fact that Sonic's campaign takes place first chronologically, or how difficult the game is with any one character, an approach we would see again in Sonic Heroes. For better or worse, the game just lets you have at it. But for the seasoned player, those who probably played vanilla Sonic 3 before Sonic and Knuckles even released, picking up their save files where they left off at the end of launch base, these people very likely finished the game first with Sonic. And as a way of incentivizing another time through with Big Red, beyond, the obvious, he's awesome and you want to try out his cool abilities, the developers opted to make Knuckles the game's hard mode, offering a bump in difficulty to those familiar with the game already. Even though, for the most part, Knuckles faces all the same bosses as Sonic, his lower jump height and the overall ramped up aggression for his versions of these encounters seriously ramps up the difficulty. And I don't mind saying, it was very easy to be caught off guard by these on your first time, if you made the mistake of expecting the exact same fights as Sonic. Difficulty aside though, I never needed much of an incentive to go through the game again with Knuckles. His stage layouts are completely different from Sonic's for the most part, and using him finally grants that eureka moment as you mow down obstacles that have left you stumped for the best part of a year. And the fact that his campaign takes place after the blue blurs, his custom paths through the game solidify his role as the island's guardian, and he gets a completely different finale to his story. I was happy to play through again as him either way, but as far as value for money goes, you just can't argue with everything on offer from this game. And if you want to change of scenery, why not lock on Sonic 2 instead, and experience a game with Knuckles that predates his existence? I've seen some people complain in retrospect that this game was cut in half for the sake of a promotional deal with McDonald's. And while I agree with that in principle, the devs did absolutely everything in their power to make it up to the audience with their lock-on technology. And I, for one, wouldn't change a thing.
Hey, I'm VMAX17, and thanks Mark for letting me on the channel. I wanted to hop on today's video to talk about why I love Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Now, before we even start, who wouldn't love Sonic 3? Going from the presentation, to the story, to just the gameplay itself, it's a fantastic video game, and one which sometimes I feel gets overlooked. Sure, sometimes it feels like it has gone under the shadow of the 2017 title of Sonic Mania, and the 2018 title of Sonic Mania Plus, but that doesn't change that sometimes I still feel like it's the better game. Controversial, I know, but I have plenty of memories waking up to play Sonic 3 or Sonic & Knuckles on the Sonic Gems collection on GameCube. Sadly, while I was younger, I had no way to play the definitive game of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and let this be known, this is the only way this game should be played. Growing up, I loved Michael Jackson as an artist, so finding out later that he played a part in the soundtrack of this beloved game to me also made my eyes spark with happiness. I was also pretty lucky to not have to deal with things like the Barrel of Doom, but I did get stuck in Marble Garden Zone Act 1. Don't ask how, I just got lost. And I was actually pretty lucky to not deal with a lot of faults that kept some people from completing Sonic 3. But I also love the story and the dynamic between Knuckles and Sonic. It's even more satisfying when Sonic returns the Master Emerald after beating the game and gains Knuckles' respect. This game has a fantastic story, and even if nothing is said, a lot is shown. The difficulty is also something that goes up and works in a good manner as the game progresses, which is something that I can appreciate. Overall though, I love Sonic 3 and Knuckles in its entirety. I still think it's one of the best Sonic games ever made.
Everyone knows that the music in Sonic is awesome, right? I mean, all it takes is a quick search on YouTube, and you're quickly buried by an avalanche of remixes and covers for pretty much any song from the series you can think of, reimagined across all genres of music. It always makes me laugh to myself whenever I think about it, because even though that statement is pretty much accepted as objective fact across the board now, even among some who you wouldn't call a Sonic fan, liking Sonic music wasn't something you dare admit to the wrong person back in the day. That shit gained you the weird label pretty much instantly. I remember talking about this recently actually with my cousin. Yes, the Sonic cousin. And he was telling me about how one time he was being mocked by someone about his taste in music, saying that he would probably only go to a nightclub if they were playing music from Sega games. And when he was telling me this, we both just stopped and looked at each other and said, yeah, that's probably not wrong. Most of the composers for these games were heavily influenced by synth, dance, and rock music from the 80s and early 90s anyway. And these so happen to be my favorite genres of music to this day, along with my frankly ridiculous amount of video game music. Music is music, and as an art, totally subjective. And anyone who ever tries to tell you something like, that music is bad, why are you listening to that? Just remind yourself that what they are effectively saying is those are the wrong sounds in your ears. And that alone should be enough to tell you how full of shit they are. For the most part, the music in Sonic games is truly special. And for this game in particular, whether you credit Michael Jackson and his team with most of the soundtrack or not, you can't deny that just as much time, effort, and passion went into the music as the rest of the game.
Sonic 3 and Knuckles, like, where do I begin, man? This, in my opinion, is definitely, like, the best out of all the classic games, even better than Mania, mainly just for the fact that it has all original levels. I love Sonic 3 and K. It wasn't always like that. I used to have favoritism over it back in the good old days, when I had an original GameCube. I still have that GameCube with Sonic Mega Collection. The only reason that I played it over the other Sonic games is because that it had a save file, and I always hated having to restart every time. And that save file was completely useless because I don't remember getting past Angel Island Act 2, which is dumb. But as of recently, I've come to really appreciate it. I have a lot of fond memories playing with the game as a child. Definitely my favorite out of all the classic Sonic games. I think it controls perfectly. The addition of Knuckles, one of my favorite characters. The addition of the elemental shields, always beautiful. There's just so much to love about the game. I definitely put it in my top 5 Sonic games, and definitely my top 5 in terms of soundtrack. Whew. Oh my god. I remember. It almost feels nostalgic to me at this point. I remember being in 8th grade, super bored, had no music to listen to, and then I just came across, this is like where my love for the game really kicked off. I just jammed out to nothing but remixes of the Eggman boss theme and Ice Cap Zone. I can go on about Ice Cap Zone all day, every day. Like, Ice Cap Zone is in my top 5. Again, probably, maybe even, hell, no, top 3. My top 3 levels in all of Sonic. There's just something, I guess I've always grown akin to the ice type levels, but man, Ice Cap just hits so different. The music, the atmosphere, just the design. I've always loved that stage. It's very personal to me. And the Eggman boss music, I can never get over that. Knuckles, of course, that's also very personal to me. I love Knuckles so much. He's one of my favorite characters, especially in this in this day and age. Been treated so poorly in past Sonic games. There's just so much to love. So many memorable levels. So many memorable characters. There's just so much about Sonic 3 and Knuckles that is just amazing. It's the classic Sonic formula perfected.
I hope you all enjoyed this mashup of opinions, anecdotes, experiences, and unbridled love for Sonic 3 and Knuckles. As a community, we are often so very much divided on exactly what we want this franchise to be. Classic, Adventure, Heroes, Storybook, Boost, not to mention all the subsections within those sections and the countless spin-offs this series has seen over the course of 3 decades. For better or worse, Sega has switched things up so much, and so often, that each generation of Sonic fan now has a completely different idea of what a Sonic game is for them. But what I so often see is a line drawn in the sand when it comes to Sonic 3 and Knuckles. And something about this game in particular just speaks to Sonic fans of all eras. And I don't think that could be made any clearer than what we just heard from the multiple generations of Sonic fans that were kind enough to lend their voice for this video. I'd like to take a moment to thank them all for taking the time to speak about this wonderful game that is so very special to me, and obviously is equally as special to them. A link to all of their channels can be found in the description below, so be sure to check them out when you have a chance. They have some seriously awesome content on offer. This video was never intended as a review or balanced critique, by the way. If you want that level of nitty-gritty on the topic, you should definitely check out my 2-part retrospective that spans well over an hour in total. But what about you guys? Let me know about your thoughts, stories, and experiences with the Tower of Power that is Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Whether or not it was even a tower when you played it. I love hearing other people's experiences with this game, so be sure to sound off in the comments below. And if you enjoy this type of content and want to see more like this from me, please make sure to like, subscribe, and do things to that bell icon to be notified when I release more. Those simple clicks go a long way, and all of your support is seriously appreciated by me. I honestly can't thank you all enough for everything. You guys have been awesome. A big thank you for watching, and as always guys, take care.